I'm intrigued by hippies. Um, I'm even more intrigued by closeted hippies like myself.
You're
You
a
can't
closet
see it,
hippie?
but yes, I have candles burning in the room currently. I would burn incense, but this is not my house. I'm intrigued by grounding, barefoot grounding, nudists.
I
Even
love all that stuff.
it's the most intriguing part of humanity. And of course, when I came across it in your content, I'm like the dancing and then the love of. First of all, you're a vegan. Are you still vegan?
I'm actually not still vegan. No, I quit.
Interesting.
Yeah, I quit in 2019. My perspective on that, total 180. It's like
Please
I'm
do tell.
um okay, so wow, this is kind of a big this is like a can of worms. So I actually grew up vegetarian
Hmm.
and I went vegan in I want to say like 2013. I'm pretty sure I went vegan in 2013,
Hmm.
and I was a vegan for like almost 6 years, and I was totally convinced that it was the perfect diet. I was totally
Yeah.
convinced that it was like the holy grail of eating and that it
Hmm.
was gonna save my life and everything. And I still believe in like the healing benefits of veganism, but now I see it as more of like a protocol to take if you're sick. But I don't know if it's meant to be a lifelong thing, because towards
Hmm.
the end of veganism, I started to notice some really big health issues,
Yeah.
and I was really struggling. And I was so confused because I was like, I don't get it. I'm like following the
Hmm.
best diet in the world, and I'm not
Yeah.
eating, and I was not eating a lot of those processed vegan fake
Hmm.
meats and fake everything. I was eating very clean, organic fruits, vegetables, whole foods, beans, nuts, seeds, all that stuff. But still, my health was really suffering by the end.
Yeah.
And I ate meat for the very first time in my life in 2019.
Jesus.
I know. And it was very, very high quality. I still don't believe in like factory farming or anything like that.
Hmm.
But when it comes to like supporting local farms and, you know, supporting regenerative agriculture, I started learning more about sustainable agriculture pretty much. And I learned
Hmm.
how veganism actually can actually have a much more devastating impact on the world than just eating from your local farm,
Yeah.
your local organic farm. And within a few months, I noticed a huge difference in my health. And now um, at this point in my life, I don't see myself ever going back to veganism. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Life is
That's
crazy.
interesting. Yeah, I went vegan for 40 days. And I attempted to make content out of it. I'm going to show my transformation. I watched What the Health documentary, and I believe you watched it too.
I
Um,
did.
and I was, it was intriguing. It pulls on your emotional heartstrings. Like they show a chicken without a beak, and I'm like, geez, all right, come on, we can't be eating this stuff.
And I still
Um,
don't believe in any of that stuff. Like I still
hmm.
don't believe in supporting industries that do it that way,
Right.
Like
Hmm.
I still don't eat from like, your average restaurant. Like I'm very like careful with where I get my food from these days,
Hmm.
but yeah, I think What the Health and a lot of these other documentaries, they get you in such an emotional state.
Yeah.
And when you're emotional, you're much more likely to make drastic decisions.
Right.
And I think that, that's something I've learned, is that it's just never wise to make decisions out of a deeply emotional state. And
Right.
now I can kind of see things a bit more objectively, I think.
Yeah.
But how did it
Yeah.
go for you, the 40 days of veganism? Did you notice any differences?
Yeah, and all to my detriment. The loss of muscle was big.
Hmm.
Whereas I didn't lose much weight, but I lost a ton of muscle, and it was obvious, especially in the mirror. But probably the biggest piece that I noticed was the loss of sex drive. Now,
Oh,
this is twofold in terms of benefits because I was able to focus.
mm-hmm.
It like when you're constantly you see a beautiful woman, I'm like, mercy of God, if I could just, ma'am, can you tell me your name real quick, please? Um, but I didn't have that, and so I was able to focus more often, especially being an environment of women. Like I work in, well, at the time I was working in budget and finance in the Air Force, and so being surrounded by it's a pretty co-ed environment. Um, you're just constantly dealing with distractions, especially with people approaching me. Because anyway, it was a big thing in terms of all right. I do appreciate having sex drive because it gives me a lot of my energy throughout the day. Like it's a major reason. Like I love women, so it's a major reason why I do what I do and why I try to succeed. Is like pretty much every man, what they're driven by is the reward of a woman,
Mm-hmm.
and it's what drive a lot of men, especially masculine men, the love
Mm-hmm.
of feminine energy. And so losing that was twofold in terms of I saw both sides of, all right, I can focus now, and I'm not really distracted much, but also it's the one thing that drives me also. So it definitely had to go. I'm like, nah, I had some grilled chicken, and I was like, oh, I feel it, and maybe in placebo, but um,
No, I don't think it's placebo. I don't. I think you're right on because I've noticed a lot of other people talk about similar things. But it's interesting that you felt that change so quickly just after 40
mhm,
days. Because I've
yeah,
noticed for some guys, it takes like almost years before they notice that change in themselves, that they don't have a
hmm,
sex drive anymore.
yeah,
And that's honestly like I'm extremely like conspiracy minded, but
yeah,
in
yeah,
my reality it's not a conspiracy, it's like just the truth. But
hmm,
like, I think now when I don't know, like now when you see the companies that are getting behind veganism,
hmm,
like, and when you see the effects that it does have on people's health, you can't help but wonder, if there's an agenda behind it, like the fact that it does cause people to lose their sex drive
yeah,
sometimes. It did that actually never happened to me, but I have heard from a lot of other people that it happens.
yeah,
Um, there was a month during my time as a vegan where I lost my menstrual cycle.
hmm,
And that's something I've heard a lot of women talk about as well, that after a few years of being vegan, they lose their periods. This
wow,
doesn't happen to every woman, but it just kind of makes me, I don't know, like this is maybe the conspiracy mind in me that just thinks that maybe there's some kind of depopulation agenda going on behind veganism, to
yeah,
have people lose their sex drives, to have women lose their fertility,
yeah,
and to keep people in a perpetual state of like not wanting to procreate.
yeah. You can definitely see the patterns and the correlations, especially in today's society where like this gender war of sorts, where you kind of see how like the birth rates are dropping. And
Yeah,
it's not just in America, it's across the world. You see it in China and Korea, and like, all right, we can give y'all two kids per family now. Like that, a lot of things are changing, and
mm-hmm.
not all of it's beneficial. Like obviously with the freedom that a lot of women are receiving, I don't think it's all bad.
Yeah,
But to the point where the family is starting to degrade. I'm like, oh
yeah,
well, we can't build on top of sand, and you see a lot of people are attempting to do the job of two people. I'm like, there's a reason why it takes two to create and two to sustain and two to grow and two to teach. So
exactly.
you can definitely see the correlations between, all right, somebody might be in charge, somebody's pulling levers in the back rooms, a smoke filled, shadowed, who's that in the corner over there, touching stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows, but it's definitely intriguing, especially when you think about the logical piece of, because I'm not sure if you heard of carnivore diet,
I
but
have.
it's the exact opposite side of the spectrum,
Right.
and for me it works amazingly, and it's
Mm-hmm.
very hard to sustain. Self-admittedly, like I love sweets, I have a huge sweet tooth, but when I stick to it, it's amazing. Like, I'm on it now, and it's
Oh,
everything clicks. My anxiety drops. Like my muscle stays the same, even though my fat is dropping. I'm like, it's intriguing, and of course, my logical mind will say balance is the answer. I'm like, well, what if it's not the answer? Like, what if the answer is completely in the opposite direction? Um, but yeah, do you have any thoughts on the carnivore diet?
I've seen it work for a lot of people, but the thing about it is that, I don't know if, like, I don't, like, I think that we could probably only really be able to know like 7, 8 years down the line to see where
Mm-hmm.
people's health is at. Because I mean, with veganism, honestly, the first couple years of veganism, I felt invincible. I felt
Right.
incredible. Like, I felt like literally incredible. That's why I was promoting it so much. Like, I
Yeah.
wouldn't promote it if I didn't truly believe in it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so now I guess I'm more like, I don't know. I almost don't feel like I'm in a place to draw any deep conclusions about any diet at this point anymore, because it's like I
Yeah.
never know how things are going to shape out in the future. But I think experimentation is really good. I think that
Yeah.
like you like I see your body is your own experiment, and
Mm-hmm.
so like test different things out, see what works for you. And if you notice that the carnivore diet is working now, then do it. But if at any point it's not working, then you know change and adapt, find
Yeah.
something new. I think that it's yeah, I think it's good for people to do self experiments, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah. And of course, like the ethical pull is there as well, because that's one thing that got me when I watch, what the health. But
Mhm.
also when I paused that, all right, well, if humans shouldn't eat animals, then why are animals allowed to eat animals? And
Yeah,
they're eating them alive. And like, you ever
much
seen a
more
crocodile
brutal
eat a
ways.
gazelle? Right.
Yeah,
I'm like, all right, so factories bad. You shouldn't be torturing these animals. That they should have a quick death, if at all. But then you look at nature itself, and I'm like, nature's not wrong. It is what it is. Like, it
it
doesn't
is what it
change.
is.
It doesn't. It's beautiful because
Hmm.
it's normal.
Yeah.
And of course, the fall of Eve or the fall of Adam and Eve and that whole thing, how it correlates to our current reality. But it still is. And I'm like,
Yeah.
lions, they don't wait for the thing to die before they break bread. Like, they go straight in. So it's definitely interesting to, and it's the question I always ask. I'm like, all right, well, if humans shouldn't eat animals, then why do animals get to eat animals alive? And anyway, it's a whole thing. But
No, it makes perfect sense.